So whatever, there it is. Am I good? Can you hear me? We're good? Good. Thanks for having me. I spoke to a group on Tuesday, wasn't it Tuesday? And really enjoyed it, and I'm glad to be here with you. For better or worse, I'm one of those guys that tries to kind of keep it as real as possible, and that's what I hope to do here the next 30 minutes or so. I will tell you, I'm a native Memphian, started a business off my couch in 2001, and was coaching a football team long before any cameras showed up. And my wife reminds me that that's who I am. And she does a good job reminding me of that. But, you know, when you're on Jimmy Kimmel and you're live on Sports Center and you're hanging around with Sean Combs, P. Diddy, my guy, and you're hanging around with Serena Williams, and you're writing a book, and you're being offered TV shows, and you're walking the red carpet at the Academy Awards, and George Clooney's with you, and you're doing all this, you need a wife to say, hey, dude, you know, keep it real. You're just a Memphis guy, right, that coaches football. And so I'm keeping it real, but then, you know, then I'm asked to speak all over the country, and the thing's going crazy in Europe, and it's the #1 selling DVD in the country, but I'm keeping it real. And so, you know, I'm at the in Colorado Springs. I'm at the Colorado Springs, the Olympic Center, where they train all the Olympians, and they've asked me to come talk before they all go to England for the Olympics, and I'm happy to do that, and so, you know, but I'm keeping it real. And so I'm going down the elevator. Now, I'm deaf in my right ear, but I hear real well out of my left ear. And so I'm going down the elevator into the building where the venue is, and there are these two girls at the bottom of the elevator on the left. And, you know, I think they're hot. So they're down there being hot at the end of the elevator as I'm coming down it, and I'm keeping it real, and I hear the first one go to her friend, oh, look, man, I know him. And immediately the realness left, because I'm like, yeah, you do. And the other one said, so do I, but I thought Chris Farley had died. And it was right then I thought, you know, my wife's been trying to tell me, man, keep it real, right? But yeah. So it's in that vein that I want to talk to you guys today for just a little bit, is I just want to keep it real with you. When Dean Grover and I spoke, you know, I speak on a number of different topics, and he said, I want my students to know. I want them to get it. I want, you know, all the leadership I talk about, and all the philanthropy I talk about, and all the responsibility for giving that I talk about, I want them to know. And so I thought a lot about that, and I want to talk to you about what it's going to take. And it's really four things. It's dreams, it's hard work, it's service, and it is what you leave behind. And if you go out central out here, and you take a left, and you go down about 3 miles, there's this big pink house that's the Pink Palace. And when I was coming up, they didn't have the IMAX theater and all that stuff around. It was just a big pink house, and they turned it into a museum. And I don't know if you know anything about that big pink house, but it was built by this guy who got sick of watching his mom spend all day shopping. Because back in the day, when you wanted meat, you went to the butcher. And when you wanted bread, you went to the baker. And when you wanted canned goods, you went to the dry goods store. And then when you wanted fruit and vegetables, you went to the stands with the fruit and vegetables. And he was like, my mom's got to go all day just to cook. He's got to go to all these markets. these individual markets, the bread market and the meat market and all these markets. And so he had this idea. So what he did was he stocked all this in one place and had a counter up front, and then the customers could walk in and give this list of all the things they wanted, and the stock clerks in the back, the aisles had these conveyors, and they would go pick the stuff off from the list, put on a conveyor, the conveyor would send it up front, they would put it together, and then you could leave. And then what happened was, people said, well, you know, Turner makes milk, but so does Hyde Park. So the lady then says, you know, I want to choose my milk. So then they yank the conveyors out and keep these shelves, and people come through, and then they choose what they want. And he created this supermarket. And it was called Piggly Wiggly. And it was the first one in the world. Clarence Saunders in Memphis had a dream. He said, I think I can make things better. And now there's Walmart, the largest retailer in the world, in the history of the world, who's basically a ginormous supermarket. Y'all, that was started here from one man's dream. So then there's this guy that went to school here, right? And I've had lunch with him, and I've talked with him about it, so we're going to dispel all the notions. He did not get an F. He got a C on his thesis. And his thesis was given a C not because he can't write or doesn't have good syntax. It wasn't because he didn't get his punctuation right. All that was square. The problem was the very notion of his thesis was so utterly ridiculous that his professors and everybody around him said, this is insane. This can't happen. Because, see, everybody knows the closest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Therefore, if you're going from Cleveland to Pittsburgh, you don't go to Memphis first. That's stupid. But, see, he thought business worked like a wheel instead of a bunch of individual straight lines. He believed in a hub with spokes coming off of it. And his professors gave him a C at this very institution. But he had a dream. And now you can't do business in this world without Fred Smith. Because he dreamed. Because he had a dream. And so, if the United States was in a huge national disaster and catastrophe, other than its own military, do you know what the United States government considers the #1 asset in our entire country? Let me ask something. Who better to mobilize everything as quickly as possible than FedEx? Not only has he created a business, not only has he changed the way business works all over the world, he's become the most major asset in our country. And he went to school right here and dreamed. And even told his professors he was wrong. And he changed the way the world works. So when I, in 2001, was 33 and had a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old, we got on city water, it cleared up. And I quit my very well-paying job to start a company called Classic American Hardwoods off my couch, which is an extremely heavily asset-laden business because you got to have all this equipment and you need lots of employees, and I had nothing. People told me, man, you are dreaming. You have lost your mind. And so in 2003, when I walked across Danny Thomas and went over to Manassas, and their previous 10-year football record was 5 wins against 95 losses, and they only had 17 kids and no equipment, I said, yeah, we can win here. I said, man, you are dreaming. You know what? I'll take that. I'll be a dreamer. Because, see, I know what people like Clarence Saunders did on a dream. I know what people like Fred Smith did on a dream. Have you been across the street and walked into that building right across the street from the Innovation Drive, that Holiday Inn complex? See, this guy was driving with his 5 kids in his LTD and his wife going on a vacation that he worked real hard on, and he was sick, that there was nowhere to stay that was decent, that had a TV and maybe a pool to put his kids in. And so when he came back off his construction job, he said, I'm going to build a hotel. And he put it on Summer Avenue. It's called the Royal Oaks. And his wife knitted the curtains and knitted the bedspreads. And from that very meager beginning, Kimmons Wilson started Holiday Inns, the foundation by which every hotel that you know of is copied. Billions of dollars made. Unbelievable philanthropy all across the world because he had a dream. I'll be a dreamer. I'll absolutely be a dreamer because I know that the most successful people in the world start off with a dream. They went against the grain. They told conventional wisdom and all the naysayers, I don't care what you say, and I don't care about what you think. I have a dream. And so when people look at you and say, man, you're dreaming, say, all right, I got no problem with that. Call me a dreamer. I'd rather be that than a pessimist. Dream. Allow your dreams to manifest themselves in realities. It's what changes the world. The greatest entrepreneurs and the greatest minds of our times would have been called dreamers by the contemporaries. John Hopkins did a study. I don't know, it's about a 15-year-old study. I'm a psychology major, and I remember studying it. And they took a focus group of people, and they took another group of people, and they said, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to sleep in our lab, and then you're going to go and do your normal day. You're going to go to work, do your thing. The only difference is when it's time to go to bed, instead of go to bed in your own bed, you're going to our lab. Okay? So the first group did that. And the second group, they did this too. Whenever their eyes, while they were sleeping, started doing this, they were in rapid eye movement. Y'all have probably heard of that, REM sleep. What happens, what makes your eye twitch is brain activity. When you're asleep and you are going through REMs and your eyes twitching, that's when you are dreaming. So what they did was they let the one group sleep in the deal, didn't mess with them. They went on and everything was fine. The other group, the minute they hit REMs, they woke them up. All they did was made them conscious. They had to take one sip of water to show that they were fully conscious, and they let them go right back to bed. They only lost in an 8-hour time of sleep about 45 minutes of sleep, of actual sleep. That's all. But they didn't let, the minute they twitched, they stopped them. They didn't let them dream. After 2 days, these people could not even drive themselves to work. They were so disoriented. They had to have people drive them to work. After 3 days, they were psychotic. After 4 days, they were so depressed they couldn't even get out of bed, and after 5 days, they were suicidal. On day 6, they canceled the entire study because they had a group of 20 people that needed therapy because they couldn't dream. Guys, it's not something to do to dream. You're built to dream. Your health requires you to dream. It is the way you were built. So when somebody calls you a dreamer, yes, sir, I am. And so are the best people, the people who've made the most amazing changes in our society. Understand, your health requires you to dream. Your physical health. But more importantly, your professional health requires you to dream. Share your dreams. Dream. There's nothing wrong with it. Be a dreamer. Be an innovator. Dream. When I went to Manassas in 2003, I didn't really know what I was getting into. If you don't know the Manassas area, I'm going to tell you Manassas was on Firestone. Now it's on Manassas. It moved about 3 years ago. It moved literally 400 yards. And the neighborhoods that support it are these. New Chicago is right on the Can I get some New Chicago, some North Side? Yeah. All right, so New Chicago is on the east side of where Manassas is. Smoky City's on the south side. Greenlaw and 7th Street's across Thomas on the west side. That's the neighborhoods from which the kids that attend Manassas come from. Here are the demographics. Average annual income, $7,800. Of the homes that consist with one or more children in them, only 8% have a married couple. Fewer than 32% of the homes own a car. 92% of the children born into those homes are born into a home without the father in it. 91% of the children by the age of 18 have never lived out of official poverty. And an 18-year-old male is 3 times more likely to be incarcerated than he is to be in college. We showed up at Manassas. There were 17 kids on the football team, and they'd won 5 games in 10 years. 4 years later, we had 70 kids on the team, and we won 18 ball games. My last 2 years, we graduated 36 boys off our 2 football teams, and 35 went to college. You can dream things to happen, and you can change lives. What I'm saying to you is, don't just dream in business. Kimmons Wilson, Clarence Saunders, Fred Smith, don't just dream in business. Dream about your communities. Dream about your society. Dream about your families. Dream. Second, dreaming's not enough, because if you just dream and don't do anything about it, well, you're a dreamer without action. The New York Times took a whole bunch of folks that had $20 million or more in net worth. I'd call them rich. But they couldn't have started with family money. In other words, it was a first generation of somebody who created wealth. And then they said, hey, listen, I want you to itemize the 20 most important attributes you have and possess that got you to success. You know, surround yourself with good people, well capitalized, #1 education, all of the different attributes that you think would lead to an individual's success. And they listed them. And then they took them all and mean averaged them. 40%. The next number 2 was like at 18%. So the one item that made everybody's list and the one item that ranked as 40% most important of 20 different things, 40%, the next one was 18%. Hard work. Good old-fashioned hard work. See, here's the thing. You aren't entitled. And so many of you in your generations think that you are. You are guaranteed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You are not guaranteed life, liberty, and happiness. You need to get that. It's not the government's responsibility to make you happy. It's not the government's responsibility to make you full. It's not the government's responsibility to give you happiness. It is our society and our government's responsibility to give you the pursuit of happiness. What you do in that pursuit is on you. Let me tell you something, guys. You're going to leave these walls one day, and you're going to leave the professors and the deans and the people that care about you. And the world's going to change. Because ain't nobody going to be there to wipe your nose. It's going to be tough. But here's the thing. Work hard. Understand, nobody owes you anything. And nobody is going to give you anything except freedom, life, and an opportunity to pursue your own happiness, to pursue your own dreams. And that opportunity of pursuit is the greatest thing that's ever been given to a society of people in the history of our world. Just the opportunity is what you want. They're not going to give you your dreams. You dream, and then you pursue your dreams, and you outwork the person next to you. That same guy, Kemmons Wilson, Holiday Inn dude, I had lunch with him before he passed away, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. He's the most anecdotal guy in the world, and he was hilarious, and he made me buy. As he told me, you asked me to lunch. And you know what he told me? He said, Bill, I'm going to tell you one thing. To be successful, you only have to work half a day. And I thought, I'm in. Billions of dollars, the largest landowner in the state of Florida, all these Holiday Inns and Crown Plazas, and good gosh almighty, half a day, I'm in. He said, yep, it doesn't matter if it's the first 12 hours or the second 12 hours. I'll never forget it. Because, see, when you leave here, if you think you're going to do your 8 and then you're straight, you just be like everybody else. The government says 40 hours is a work week. What do you say? You got to work hard. And that may take 12. That may take 14 hours. If you got a dream and you want to make that dream happen, and you expect, because the government says you're only supposed to work 40 hours, that that's the way it's going to work and everything's going to be great, and then you look down the road at 35 years old and you're kind of dead end, your dreams hadn't happened, and you're kind of upset, and you're going to blame it on everybody else, make all the excuses, I'm going to tell you this, that's your problem. Why don't you work harder? 20 of the most wealthy people in the world that started with nothing, that have a net worth greater than $20 million, said, it's not about capital. It's not about surrounding yourself with good people. It's not about going to Harvard. It's about working your ass off. It's about having a dream and killing yourself to make it happen. Not, I got my diploma, here I am, let me put in my 8, and everything's going to be perfect. Because you are not guaranteed happiness. You're guaranteed the pursuit of that happiness. And what you do with that pursuit is on you. Dream and work. And if you don't dream and you don't work, then you have no right to bitch. And if you do dream and you do work, you will not bitch. Because you'll have what you want. Third, you got to lead. Nobody is going to just follow you in your dreams and say, well, they're working hard. They got some dreams. I'm following them. It doesn't work that way. And there's a lot of things about leadership that we could talk about, but I'm going to tell you the number one most important thing to do, to lead an organization, to lead your family, to lead your community, to lead your church, synagogue, mosque, to lead so that people can work hard with you, so that you can achieve your dreams. The number one thing is service. And most people miss it. Now, I don't care if you are on the left or the right. We're not going to get into that discussion. I'll be happy to come back and do some political talks one day, and everybody can throw stuff at me, but we're not going to talk about politics right now. We're just going to say, I don't care if you're left or right. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I don't care if you're independent. I don't care for the sake of this particular discussion. Whether you're right or left, independent, Democrat, Republican, I think we can all agree on one thing. Things are pretty screwed up. Things are pretty screwed up. Back when Jimmy Carter was president, before many of you were even alive, I guess, and some of you might have been around. I know you were. Yeah. Jimmy Carter was president, and we're not going to argue about whether or not Jimmy Carter's a good president or a good man or any of that. We're just going to say this. During the 4 years of his presidency, Iran captured a bunch of Americans and held them captive for over a year, and we had all kinds of Middle East unrest. Interest rates were the exact opposite of what they are now. They were 21%. 21%. You could almost not afford to buy a house because a house note that's $600 today, the same house back then was $3,000 a month because the interest rates were out of control. Therefore, the housing market crashed and the economy was terrible. The Soviet Union was doing their thing. Russia was impossible to deal with. And basically, Americans didn't feel real good about everything that was going on in the country. A lot of the American exceptionalism feelings, a lot of what Americans were proud of, we kind of lost our edge, man. We had a hitch in our giddy up. So, just to recap, the Middle East was out of control and we had all kinds of problems then. Housing was terrible and the economy was terrible. And we really didn't have a lot of sense of pride or direction in our country. I just wondered, does that sound at all familiar to you? And so we also had this weird way our government was working at that time. See, Ronald Reagan became our president after Jimmy Carter, a Republican. And we had this guy running Congress named Tip O'Neill, a Massachusetts Democrat. We're not talking about Democrat, we're talking about Massachusetts Democrat. That's as Democrat gets. And these polar opposites. And so what happened was, as the story goes, on his 4th day in office, Ronald Reagan invited Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House, Leader of Congress, over to the Oval Office. And when Tip got there with his 3 lieutenants in the Democratic Party, Ronald Reagan dismissed his entire cabinet, told them to get out, shut the door. It was Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill, and his guys. And Ronald Reagan said, Tip, what can I do for you? What do you want to have happen? And as Tip O'Neill then gathered his chin up off the floor and reattached it, he proceeded to tell President Reagan the things he wanted to have happen. And the next 6 months, President Reagan went and twisted his Republican members' arms and said, yeah, we're going to raise taxes just a little. And yeah, we're going to make this social thing happen. And you know what Ronald Reagan did? He served Tip O'Neill. He gave Tip O'Neill what Tip O'Neill wanted. And you know what Ronald Reagan got the remaining 7.5 years of his presidency? Anything he wanted. See, he served his adversary. They're Americans, political adversary. He served them. He said, what do you want to have happen? Not, this is the way I see it and this is how we're going to do it. Not, I'm going to lead you and jam it down your throat. I want to serve you, Tip. How can I help you get the things you need? And he served them. And then for 7.5 years, he was able to lead them. And you know what happened those 7.5 years? The Soviet Union crumbled. There's no more Soviet Union. Germany was an east and west. The wall literally came down and reunited an entire country. Cousins and brothers who hadn't seen each other in 40 years were reunited. Our country, interest rates went, and our country had the most successful 7 years it's seen since, economically. And all of a sudden, Americans were walking with their chest out again because we are an exceptional people. And this is an exceptional place because you are allowed to dream and you are allowed to work hard and you do have the opportunity to pursue happiness. What in the world would happen today if those bozos on both sides, all of them, would just, instead of trying to beat the hell out of each other and line their pockets, if they would just seek to serve one another and us, what could our country do? You have to serve in order to lead. Leadership is not a baseball bat. It's a loving hand. If you have dreams and you're willing to work hard to attain them, You can't do it alone. And the only way you're going to do it is by leading folks to believe in your dream and work hard with you. And the only way you're going to lead them is to serve them. It doesn't matter if it's a football team. It doesn't matter if it's a business. It doesn't matter if it's your church, your synagogue, your mosque, or it doesn't matter if it's your spouse or your children. You serve. And in serving and in saying, I'm here for you, people will buy into you and they will follow your lead. And then they will work hard with you. And then they will adopt your dream and help you make it happen. Serve. One other thing on service, my 5th year, 4-year, 5-year, took a while. My 5th year at college, I was on a scholarship my first 4 years, and my 5th year it ran out, and I was broke and trying to finish up. And I had to get through the last couple months, and I had one of my prized possessions was an Ozzie Smith rookie baseball. Signed, dated. It was awesome, man. For those of you who don't know, Ozzie Smith was the most amazing shortstop to ever play the game. He'd do something crazy and do a backflip right on the middle of the field. He was bad to the bone, and I had his baseball that he signed for me his rookie year and dated it, and it killed me to give it up, but I needed $400 to buy my last 2 books and get through on Roman noodles. And so I took the baseball to this guy, and I said, I'd like my $400. The craziest thing happened. He didn't just shell out $400. Everybody knows it's worth $400. Why don't you give me my $400? Well, what he did was he took that baseball first, and he got out his book with certain Ozzie Smith signatures and got out his magnifying glass, and he looked at the ball, looked at the signature, and once he authenticated the signature, then he gave me my $400. So he authenticated the signature before giving me the $400. When you seek to lead somebody, understand their magnifying glass is out. When you seek to share your dreams, understand their magnifying glass is out. Now they say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. And they may do what you tell them to do. But the minute you wheel and that door shuts, they're studying you. Are you real? Are you really serving? Are you doing what you're doing so that you can get the accolades and the pats on the back? Or are you doing what you're doing to genuinely serve the people you're with in order to lead them? The point is, you got to ask yourself, why am I pursuing this dream? Why am I trying to lead somebody here, there? And you have to do it for the right reasons. And you have to genuinely serve, because anybody you surround yourself with is looking you up and down. And let me tell you about human nature. They're a whole lot more ready to call you an idiot than they are to call you a champ. So you better be right. Be authentic when you lead. Be authentic when you serve. My first year at Manassas, after 6 games, we were 3-3. Now, 3-3's middle of the road average, but when the 10 years before that, you were 5-95. 3-3 is pretty good. And by that time, I had 19 kids on the football team, and I had half of them that had really bought in. And when I say bought in, I don't mean just the X's and O's. I mean they bought into the stuff that mattered: character, commitment, honesty, integrity, getting out of the streets, quit playing the games. The other half were yes or no sir and doing what I told them to do, but the minute practice was over, games were over, they were right back on Firestone, right back down the corner of Breedlove, hanging outside the place where they sell the fried rice, doing whatever the hell came by. And see, it was driving me nuts because I had half the team that bought into everything. They all bought into the football stuff because I showed them how to win and got them new equipment. But the other thing was, after the football, stuff that really mattered. Had half of them bought in, half of them not so much. So I went to my guy. And I said, Bobo, what's up? How come these guys, your group, is doing exactly what I'm asking them to do, not only on the field, but off the field. And how come those guys are respectful and everything, but they're not doing what I'm asking them to do off the field, the important stuff? And he dismissed me. Man, he was dismissive. You know how like this, when you ask somebody, say, oh, man, just keep doing what you're doing. Oh, man, it'll be all right. Don't worry about it. About as peripheral as it could be. I said, oh, man, don't give me that. Explain to me. Why aren't they buying in? Coach, I don't want to hurt you. Bobo, I am a grown man. I am fat and redheaded. There's little you can say that I hadn't heard. What's wrong? What's the story? He said, Coach, they're trying to figure out if you're a turkey person or not. Let me digress. Over my course of my 6 years at Manassas, I learned an enormous amount of terms that I had never learned to date. Hey, Coach, let me hold $1. I ain't got $1. Man, you so green. That means you selfish. I'm in the lumber business, and I got wearing boots, and they're dirty and nasty. Coach, man, why you want to come out here with them bow handles? That's ugly shoes. All right? Man, Coach, we're going to kill Northside. They slaw. Slaw means they suck. I learned it all, man, and I talked it because I like to. It's fun. But I ain't ever heard turkey person. Never. Turkey person. I said, what are you talking about? He said, Coach, let me tell you something, man. Every Christmas and Thanksgiving, folks from your neck of the woods roll up driving in minivans and Suburbans into New Chicago, and they drop off hams and turkeys and gifts, and we take them because we ain't got none. But then they turn around and we never see them again. Makes you wonder if they're doing that because they really care about us, or so they can go tell all their friends what nice things they did for us poor black folks down here. Turkey person. See, those guys, they had their magnifying glass on me. And what they knew that I was not ready to admit to myself is I was going out to my neighborhood every night and saying, I got them taking ACT prep classes. I got them working on their grades. I got them pulling their pants up so I don't have to look at their butt crack. I got them walking and saying yes or no, sir. I got them quit missing school. I got them out of the street. I got them winning football games. No, see, they were winning the football games. No, see, they were the ones pulling their pants up. They were the ones having to deal with being called sellouts so that they could adhere to my rules. I got to get in my car every night and go back to my real nice home. They were the ones sleeping in the tubs. It was them. Yet I thought it was about me. So even though I was helping them, I wasn't serving them yet. Changed my life. You will be authenticated every step of the way, and you better look in the mirror and be real. And when you really get to that level, you can serve, and you can lead, and you can work hard, and people work alongside of you, and you will reach your dreams. Because those very same kids who saw me as a turkey person are those very same kids that are graduating college today. Last, the founder of the Freemasons said this: what you do for yourself in this world dies with you. What you do for another lives forever. So here's the deal. 2001, I was broke. 2001, September 1st of 2001 is when I swung the doors open and spent all the money I had, all my investors' money. 10 days later, some planes hit some buildings and the world blows up. I knew I was broke then because I knew the economy was dead. I'd spent all my money. I had about enough money to make it 45 days before I started turning profit. I was going broke. By the grace of God, I did make it through, but I was broke. I'm talking about y'all broke. Now, I have a 50-acre facility in North Memphis. I employ 120 people. I've got an office in Shanghai. I've got an office in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam. I've got an office in Surabaya, Indonesia. We do about $40 million a year in sales, and there's people who've made their entire living off my business, and I did this the exact same time I built the Manassas football team. From this, speaking all over the world, writing books, from that, I got a big, nice house. I got here, that's a fat watch. That thing sparkles. My wife's got a nicer one. She got a rock. She drives a fat car. I drive a nice car. We have a third car with a drop top. All my kids have cars. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you this to make a point. The dirt will just be starting to hit the top of the box that my cold body's in before everybody starts arguing over who gets what. You've probably had family members. You've probably seen it. Somebody dies. Everybody's, oh, that's so sad. The next day, folks are running to the house to see what they can get out of it. Because, see, the stuff that you do for you dies with you, dude. It's gone. It might make you a little more comfortable now, but this is a short time in your existence. And the stuff that you do for yourself dies with you. People will find an old ring that you hated and hadn't worn in 30 years in the back corner of a dresser, and they'll fight over it. Not because they want to wear it to remember you, because they want to melt it down and get the money for it. The things that you do for yourself in this world die with you. The things you do for another will live forever. There are 35 football players from Manassas that are in college that God willing will actually have a marriage and children and a job. And when they're sitting around the kitchen table and their 11-year-old talks to them about a problem they have at school, the things that he tells his son, he learned from me on a football field, and I'll take that. If that's my legacy, I'll take it. So what good are dreams and hard work and leading if what you leave behind is all about what you've accumulated? The point is, guys, dream and work hard and lead, but understand you don't have, it's not nice to give back, it's a responsibility. Our society is only as strong as the weakest among us. And if you're in your car and you drive around the North Loop and drive over the Smith and Chelsea exits and look down at the abject poverty and despair down there and say, man, somebody ought to do something about that, I got to ask you something. What the hell is wrong with you? Who is somebody? Somebody who? Your government who can't afford to pay its bills? The guy behind you in the car? Somebody ought to do something about that? What's wrong with you? What's your legacy to this world? Your watch? Your car? When you're riding past the airport and you go past Mill Branch and you know on Brooks Road there's 20 hookers walking up and down the street that are homeless and on cocaine, and you say, you know, somebody ought to do something about that. What's wrong with you? Why do you dream? Why do you work hard? Why do you achieve? Why do you lead, if not to use those successes to better our society? What's wrong with you? Look in the mirror. Don't say, why me? Say, why not me? You have an amazing opportunity to pursue happiness. You have life, and you have the freedom to do it. And this amazing, exceptional country gives you that opportunity to dream and to work hard to achieve those dreams and to lead people toward those dreams. And when you do it, do something with it that matters. Think about your legacy. Serve your community. Serve your families. Serve those you work with. Lead them. And when the dirt is hitting the top of your box, make sure the people around there aren't arguing over what they're going to get out of your house. but they're sitting there talking about what you did to make a difference in their life and others. And your life will be full. I appreciate you having me. I'm Bill Courtney.
Y'all have had such a treat today, and I think all of us have been touched by, this is the second time I've heard this week, and I still learned something new. So he's got time for a couple of questions. Anybody have a question that you'd like to ask?
I'll start about 250, but I'm working hard on it. Yes. Great question. Why Manassas? My business is 400 miles from the school. And a guy that works for me named Jim Tipton has a big heart. His Sunday school class had men in it that were cooking pre-game meals for Melrose and Kingsbury. And what happened in a lot of these inner city football teams, these guys didn't have pre-game meals. And so after the second half, they were malnourished and starving and just got beat to death. And so they said, let's go cook pre-game meals for some of these inner city football teams that don't have it. And then they used it as a chance to mentor and build relationships and talk. And Jim thought that was a great idea. So in the spring of 2002, he just went to Manassas because it was close to our business and he could make the trip. I taught school and coached football for a living long before I got into the private world. And I've coached for 23 or 4 years. And he came back and he said, Bill, they're terrible, but they've got some good kids. You want to coach a football team? And I said, sure. And that's how it started. Just because it was close. It just, look, I don't want to, I do a lot of different speeches. Some of them are faith-based and everything else. I'll just say this to you. I really believe God led me there.
Anybody else? All right, let's look.
When you were mentoring the youth and doing the football, what kept you going? Because I know you get very discouraged when you see the both sides. I see people that are saying, if I see one, what can I do to get change? What motivates?
Am I allowed to be completely honest? Okay. Again, there's two things that I try to stay, unless I'm brought into a speech for politics, which I am, I stay away from them. Unless I'm brought into faith-based stuff, talk about faith-based stuff, I stay away from because I don't want, I'm a Christian, but if you're not, that doesn't mean in my mind you're evil. You know, that's my set of beliefs. I have Jewish friends and Muslim friends and agnostic friends, and so when I say what I'm about to say to you, please, if you don't share my beliefs, this is not an exclusionary thing. This is just my own personal belief, okay? Now I'll answer your question. I do a lot of stuff that's not right, and I know it. And the way I take on each day is the night before when I go to sleep, I ask God to forgive me for my sins. And I believe he's the creator of the universe. So if the creator of the universe and my ultimate demonic father forgives an imperfect person like me every single night when he has all the power in the world just to dismiss me because I'm not right. And every night all I have to do is sincerely say, I'm sorry, forgive me. That cleanses me and gives me a renewed, fresh sense of vigor to go take on the next day. If the almighty ruler of the universe will do that for me, what kind of hypocrite jerk would I be to not be able to take I'm sorry from some punk kid who doesn't know how to get it right? So the answer is there's no finish line. There's no finish line with my God, and there's no finish line with me. You always forgive because you expect forgiveness. And if you expect forgiveness from your Creator, how can you not give it to another human being? So you always forgive. There is no finish line. You suck it up, and you keep trying. And you work hard, and you don't lose sight of your dream, and you serve, and it works. I saw you raising your hands back there, girl. New Chicago, Smoky City, where? Which one? New Chicago, Smoky City? New Chicago? They're all seniors now. Well, no, that's not true. Some of the first classes have graduated. I will tell you, I can't give you the most, but there's a bunch of them, and there's a bunch of failures too. Bunch of failures. I have 3 players who played for me over 6 years that are not alive anymore, and I have one who's, in a wheelchair and crippled from his neck down, and I have one who's HIV positive, and there's lots of losses, but there's also lots of gains. And I'll just tell you, Chris Glover played from me from a freshman, couldn't play a lick. As a sophomore, couldn't play half a lick. As a junior, down in the weight room, and kept trying, never missed practice. In his senior year, I ended up starting him at outside linebacker just because he showed commitment and dedication. Ended up playing his whole year, had a great time, did well, and went to Arkansas State on a full scholarship, not to play football, but an academic scholarship. And he is now in his second year, has a 3.9 GPA, is doing great. And this is a kid who grew up with a crack whore as a roommate. How does it get any better than that? So there's lots of those stories. And there's a thing called a Ben Franklin close. I don't know if you've ever heard it. If you take a piece of paper, you draw a line across the top of it, and you put plus, minus, and then you draw a line down the middle. And what he used to do is he would make decisions. He would write all the pluses he could think of and all the minuses he could think of. And the minuses outweighed the pluses, he wouldn't do it. Pluses outweighed the minuses, he did it. It's called a Ben Franklin close. He closed himself. All right? You can't use a Ben Franklin close when you're doing stuff like this because the minuses are far going to outweigh the pluses. But I can tell you this, you have to recognize that those pluses don't happen if it isn't for your dreams and what you're doing, and you have to live on those.
One more question? There's time for one more, I think.
Thanks a lot for being here.
I'm sorry?
Thanks a lot for being here.
Oh, man, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
The question I have is in the video and also in general in Memphis, a lot of the projects that are happening are as a result of race relations. I was wondering if you've got any insight 6 years being in the black community about what the problem is and some solutions about overcoming it.
I have, after 8 years, I have an enormous amount of thoughts and insights, and it's a whole nother 45-minute discussion. But I will tell you something. All due respect, your question's wrong, because you asked me what the problem is, and it's not the problem. There's a host of problems. 2020, y'all need to look this up. 2020 did a study, all right, in Africa on elephants. What they did was these elephants were destroying villages. These young male elephants were destroying villages, absolutely destroying villages and killing people, just running up on villages and knocking over houses and raising hell and then hauling ass. And all the environmentalists and whatever zoologists couldn't get these things under control, and they were actually having to kill these young male elephants because they were running amok. And what they found out was this particular group of elephants were near the tribes in the Congo that were killing all the big male elephants for their tusks, for the ivory. And so what happened was all these young male elephants were growing up without the older male role model elephants and were acting an ass and destroying stuff. And they were having to be killed. So what they did was, once they figured this out, they took these young male elephants, and instead of killing them, they took them to parts of Africa where there were still male elephants that hadn't been raped for their tusk, and just dropped these elephants off with these big elephants, and the problem stopped in months. We are physiologically designed to need two parents. It is the way the animal kingdom works. And until we figure out how to quit breaking down the fundamental need for children to be raised by loving parents who are engaged and working hard and have their own dreams, the problems never stop. And that has nothing to do with race.
I know that you join me in thanking Bill Courtney for a wonderful 45 minutes.
Thank you.